Well, here's some news articles I thought was interesting. So Amazon is telling employees to return 5 days a week. And apparently they were 3 days a week, although I think the people I know that work at Amazon are probably too senior for this to affect them directly. But anyway, corporate staffers. So we'll see what comes of it. Many companies have tried this, and many of them have found that people would rather quit than do that. So we'll see if it does any better here. The studies I've seen have said that people are more productive if you let them work from home. So this may be unwise, but I guess we're going to see. So this, I just think, is incredible. I keep hearing about this. Like I mentioned before, back in the time of the movie Tron, which was what, like 1985, it was a common practice to put a secret extra account with a hard-coded password on systems, but it should have vanished 40 years ago. And here's D-Link in their latest routers, the Wi-Fi 6 routers, putting in a hard-coded password. And it's even worse than that. It turns on a telnet service using hard-coded credentials, and it's automatically enabled when you plug in the WAN port. So this is just amazingly ridiculous. Using telnet at all should have stopped 30 or 40 years ago, and putting in hard-coded passwords should have stopped 30 or 40 years ago. It is amazing that D-Link is still doing this stupid stuff. I mean, it's good that they got it caught, but it's amazingly poor practice. So here's another incredible thing. You may have never heard, like last week, J.D. Vance said that Taylor Swift's endorsement of Trump doesn't matter, endorsement of Kamala doesn't matter because the people don't care what a billionaire might think who has nothing to do with their lives, and J.D. Vance is too stupid to realize that Donald Trump completely fits that definition. And here's another one. Larry Ellison says we're going to have AI cameras watching everything everybody does, including the cops, and automatically turning them in if anybody breaks any laws. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we are constantly recording and reporting everything that goes on. We're going to have supervision. Every police officer is going to be supervised. And so this will create utopia. And it seems like he never read 1984, the whole book about this. And I think it's an amazing, utter lack of self-awareness. Abigail Adams said all men would be tyrants if they could. And other people say power corrupts, and it's the same thing. I mean, whoever runs those cameras will have infinite power. And they will, of course, abuse everybody. And everybody else figured this out decades ago, but Larry Ellison still has no clue. By the way, his company is doing very well, Oracle. He's now the 5th richest person in the world. I just heard about it in a financial report. His wealth is now $120 billion or so. He surpassed Bill Gates. So this seems to be the same thing with Elon Musk. When people get that rich, they assume they are a superior life form, and they can tell all us lesser beings how to live, because all that money means that they must be, thousands or millions of times more important and more wise than any of us, which I think is self-delusion. But anyway, it's the way the rich and noble have always felt, that they are just a superior race and the rest of us should be grateful to be used by them. All right, so I was very interested to read about this. I've heard of the malware Pegasus that's sold for high amounts of money to nation states and military, and they use it to hack on their enemies, which unfortunately are frequently like journalists and stuff. They don't like exposing their secrets. And there's another one with a similar name from a different company. Intellexa makes the thing called Predator. And I realize I've been confusing these two names forever, but it does the same thing. Predator allows you to steal sensitive information from smartphones, photos, geolocation data, microphone records, and everything else in either one-click or zero-click attacks. So there are 2 pieces of malware you can buy and then use it as spyware to spy on government officials, journalists, your political enemies, and so on. And people are doing both of them. So anyway, they have issued sanctions on the people who make this stuff. The U.S. will not tolerate the misuse of technologies that undermine Americans' national security or that of our allies. Nor will we tolerate the misuse of technologies to perpetuate human rights abuses or undermine freedom of expression. So that's interesting. And I wonder if we sanctioned, I think a while ago, they did sanction the NSO Group, the Israeli company that makes Pegasus. It does the same thing for pretty much the same reason. So I don't think any of these people are going to prison. They're just not allowed to come to America anymore. But anyway, it does demonstrate a somewhat official American condemnation of this practice of selling spyware that people will use to mess with people. And the Scientific American has made a presidential endorsement for only the second time in their entire history, which I think is more than 100 years. And they want Kamala Harris, and they have a long article about it, why they feel we must support Kamala Harris for many. And it's not just about science, which surprised me. Healthcare. They want her to, she's going to provide health care. Trump will remove the health care, and that bothers the Scientific American. Reproductive rights, of course, will be protected by Kamala and erased by Trump. Gun safety, environment and climate, and technology. So it's very interesting. They include several issues that I might have thought they wouldn't want to comment on. But anyway, it's very interesting. A lot of people are endorsing Kamala, like Taylor Swift, but as far as the polls I've seen, it remains neck and neck. It's not clear that these big endorsements are yet moving the needle, but we will see. I think all the commentators I listen to that seem wisest, I think they're absolutely correct. The next election, Kamala will probably win, but not by a lot, and then Trump will claim he won and it was all rigged and mobilize his army of people to block, and they will refuse to accept the count of votes that show Kamala win in several states, so there will be no resolution, and we will have a constitutional crisis. And unfortunately, it will probably go up to the Supreme Court, which seems to be completely controlled by corrupt officials that are bought and sold by the alt-right, so they might well give it to Trump anyway. So I think we're in for real high drama around the election. The only thing that would prevent that is if Kamala wins by an undeniable amount, or maybe if Trump just wins outright. Anyway, we'll see. The flock cameras are going up. Yeah, automatically log license plates. Yes, and report stolen. Yep, that's part of the new, surveillance society, which we're getting for better or worse. All right, and so I thought this is very interesting. Quantum cryptography is, the best term for it is quantum key distribution. Now, I've read about this for years, and I know you can buy commercial devices that do it. And the idea is you send a secret key to the person at the other end of a fiber optic cable, and you send it one photon at a time. And each photon encodes 2 bits of information, and you measure it at the other end. And because of the property of quantum mechanics, it's like the Mission Impossible tape, where this tape will be self-destructed after it's read. When you measure a quantum mechanical object like a photon, you change it, and you destroy some information you can never get back. So if the key gets intact at the other end, then you know that nobody else measured that key. Because if they had, it would have altered the key, and it would not reach the other side correctly. So, however, all the systems I've heard of, you just send an AES key. You send an AES key this way, and then you encrypt your data with AES, and you can refresh the AES key now and then if you like. But I mean, that's the logical thing to do. However, what people are actually doing, which I was amazed to read in this article, is they are using one-time pads, where they just send a random bit stream, and then they encrypt the data with that random bit stream by XORing it with it. And the problem with that, of course, is that you have to send enough bits. Your key has to be as big as all the data you're going to send, and you can't reuse any part of it. And of course, when you're sending data one photon at a time, it goes slowly. So a system like that would probably be sort of perfectly secure in some sense, in that it doesn't even make the assumption that AES can be trusted, but it's so slow as to be almost useless, so I'm surprised they're doing it. The encryption we use on the internet, HTTPS, is a hybrid scheme using many different cryptographic procedures working together. And I thought the logical way to do this is the same thing. And I think I've seen people do that, where you don't distribute a one-time pad with quantum key distribution. You distribute a secret key, which you then use for AES, which seemed like the obvious thing to do. So I'm not clear why they aren't doing that. Anyway, there's something called the Restart Manager in Windows. I never heard of this, and this is a tool to collect the information for forensics. Apparently, the Restart Manager is in all modern versions of Windows, and this lets an application request other applications to unlock resources like files, and that's so you don't have to restart your machine after every install. I've wondered about this. The installer always says terminate all other programs before running the installer, but you don't have to, and I never do. It can apparently request an unlock and unlock a file in order to change a file, and then it will restart that program later. So that's interesting, and if some ransomware uses this, to unlock files before encrypting them. So the information about what's been going on in the Restart Manager could be useful to detect ransomware. So that's interesting. And apparently, voter databases are public. If you may remember, a few years ago, Mike Lindell, the iPillow guy, said he had proof that the Chinese were hacking systems, and he said he had PCAPs, and what he really had were voter data, names and addresses of voters, which he then displayed in a hexadecimal viewer and said, that's the evidence that proves that China has come in through the network routers and hacked the system. And anyway, the same kind of thing is apparently going to happen again. People are going to take this public data and present it and claim that they've hacked the voter registration databases, when in fact they can just download public lists. So they're warning, FBI and the CISA are warning to expect that, fake voter data hacking claims. So that's a thing to be aware of. I'm going to stop the recording.